So the last thing we need to look at with a monopoly is how does it match up against perfect competition? All right, so let's take a look here. So here we have the case where we're assuming that we have two markets, but in both cases, let's just say that both firms have, or both markets have the marginal cost, demand, marginal revenue. So now, if we are in a perfectly competitive market, price and quantity get determined at equilibrium. Many sellers all compete against each other. So the price in a perfectly competitive market, we'll do it by price PC, it's going to be up here. And the output is going to be down here. So again, perfect competition where supply equals demand, that's where you get the price and output. In a monopoly, they can set the price at whatever they want to. So they will do it at the profit maximizing output level, which is where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And then once they find that quantity, they will figure out where on the demand they need to set the price to get that quantity. And so you go up to where that quantity hits the demand. And so that is going to be, oops, looking a little better. There we go. So that, not exactly straight, but that is going to be your price that the monopoly sets. So when we look at this, compared to perfect competition, if there's a monopoly, they sell less and they charge more. So how does that look from a welfare standpoint? So we talked about surplus, we talked about consumer surplus, producer surplus, and total surplus. So here we have a graph that shows lots. So we have areas A, B, C, D, E, and F. So again, perfect competition, they're going to produce where supply equals the demand. And so here, the price is going to be here, and our quantity is going to be down here. And so in perfect competition, our consumer surplus, which is the difference between what they're willing to pay as measured by the demand and what they did pay, the price. And so the consumer surplus can be areas A, B, and C. The producer surplus, difference between what they're willing to sell for and what they did sell for, it's going to be areas D, E, and F. Now our total surplus, which is the sum of benefit to society, it's the consumer surplus plus producer surplus, is going to be all this area in here. And so it's be areas A to F. Okay? A, B, C, D, E, and F. Now, deadweight loss. We said going back that if you are at equilibrium without any kind of trade, your total surplus, the benefit to society, is maximized. And to your deadweight loss in that case is going to be 0. Now let's look at a monopoly. Well, with a monopoly, they are going to produce where, all right, the point where marginal cost equals marginal benefit, this is how much they are going to produce. And they're going to set a price at that quantity where it hits the demand. So the price is going to be up here. So if that's the case, then with a monopoly, the consumer surplus is going to be the difference between what they were willing to pay, demand, what they did pay, the price, up to the quantity. And so the consumer surplus is only going to be A. The producer surplus, the difference between what they're willing to sell for and what they did sell for, the area above supply, below the price, up to the quantity. Areas B, D, and F. Okay. And so the total surplus is going to be all the consumer plus producer is going to be A, B, D, and F. Now, these areas C and E in here, these were part of total surplus. They were a benefit to society when we were operating at equilibrium. But now nobody's getting that benefit. Nobody's getting that surplus because we are producing fewer units. And so deadweight loss is areas C and E. So how do the two match up? Well, let's see. Consumers, they're definitely worse off. They're worse off because they're getting less units and they're paying more for it. So they are losing out on areas B and C. Oops. I have to put this in here. Okay. The producers, well, they're losing this area E because they're not selling as much. But they are gaining area B. So they're taking that surplus, which was going to consumers, and transferring it to them. And so they're gaining area B. Now, society as a whole, the total surplus, well, they're losing out because of the deadweight loss. And so they had areas C and E before. They now do not, society. And so they are losing out on C and E. So if we go back and just kind of summarize this, with perfect competition versus a monopoly. In a monopoly, price is going to be higher, quantity is going to be lower, consumers are always going to be worse off because they're paying a higher amount and getting less. Producers are usually going to be better as a whole, and society is always going to be worse. So we talked about this concept of market failure. One of the reasons for market failure is because of a monopoly. Because of a monopoly, because they're selling at a higher price and a lower quantity, society as a whole is not benefiting to its maximum potential. Right? So that is one of the downfalls of a monopoly.